What is going on, everyone? We are at Money 2020 in Las Vegas at the Venetian, and we ran into Ian, the Chief Marketing Officer for Chainalysis. Ian, just to kind of start things off, tell us a little bit about Chainalysis, what it does in our space, and I'll kind of leave it general. Keep it at that.
Awesome. Thanks for inviting me to chat with you and your audience out there. You know, Chainalysis has been in the space since 2014. We build software that's used by probably every crypto business you've heard out there. We're also used extensively in the public sector. Financial regulators use our technology, law enforcement around the world to catch bad guys. We're really the platform that helps everybody who's in the crypto ecosystem take these on-chain transactions and translate it into real-world activity. Ultimately, we're trying to build trust in the ecosystem, help advance global adoption of crypto.
Now, you mentioned regulatory, right? And it's a hot topic in the crypto space, whether stablecoin regulation or just, you have the MiCA bill, which we'll get into here in a second. But what do you define as maybe the biggest or one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to staying compliant with government and regulations, being Chainalysis of what you guys do?
Well, here's the first thing I'll tell you is actually in the United States and most markets around the world, crypto is already regulated. So if you're a crypto exchange in the US, pick your favorite one where you got your Bitcoin or Ethereum deposited, and they operate in the US as a money servicer business. That means that they have to have KYC procedures in place, you have to have a real identity to open an account, and they do transaction monitoring. And that's what Chainalysis does. We help them, our customers, protect their users so that you don't accidentally withdraw into a scam or a rug pull, and that they don't have people abusing their platform trying to launder money or distribute stolen funds or things like that. So that's number one, is like there actually is already a significant amount of regulation and a ton of work goes in across the ecosystem to being secure, compliant. But I think the next wave of this is, hey, it's really unclear in the US, are digital assets securities? Are they commodities? And in the US market, that's the $1 million question.
$2 million.
Yeah. And that is what is going on Capitol Hill in the United States right now, is trying to decide who's the regulatory authority that gets to decide the rules, from everything from disclosures to what happens when people violate the rules. And it's kind of this tussle between the CFTC, the SEC, and everybody's looking at legislators on Capitol Hill to pass some laws to make this a little bit clearer.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, what are your thoughts on the whole Tornado Cash situation, right? Should open source code be essentially blacklisted? And we saw what happened. People were starting to run Ethereum through Tornado Cash and then sending it to celebrities' wallets. And so now those wallets are being sanctioned. Is this something that you expect to see more of here in the US, or where do you land on it?
It's a great question. I mean, I think on one hand, there is a right to privacy that's kind of widely established as an American value, right? Like, if I hand you $20, there's no record of that. There's no need to have a record of that. I think that needs to exist in the digital world as well. And I think it's safe to say that in general, beyond cryptocurrency, we're all probably over-tracked in the digital world. So this is where some of the privacy legislation, like GDPR in Europe, is now being adopted in parts of the United States. I think that's a good thing. And so the concept of a tool like Tornado Cash that allows for an individual user to not have to expose all the transaction history that they've ever conducted on a given blockchain, generally a good idea. And something that I think most people value and see legitimacy behind. Now, the other side of the argument, which is equally legitimate, is you had some really bad people, Lazarus Group, one of the most notorious hacking groups in the world, behind the Sony hack, stole $1 billion from the Bank of Bangladesh. They are now incredibly aggressive in cryptocurrency. This year alone, about $3 billion has been stolen. $1 billion of that, we believe, stolen by Lazarus Group, funneled to North Korea. So these guys are bad guys doing bad stuff. And they were also using Tornado Cash in order to attempt to evade law enforcement and launder all these stolen funds. And where did those funds come from? Well, it's you and me. It's our funds in DeFi platforms, right? Like these are not abstract like money that doesn't belong to anybody. It's individuals participating in the crypto ecosystem. And so I have a hard time being like, well, the existence of Tornado, if it facilitates the North Koreans getting away with good people that we know in the crypto ecosystem with their money, like that's a hard trade-off to make. And so I don't have an easy solution. There's not an easy answer here. I think privacy, absolute right. It's an American value. We need to figure out how to facilitate that, but it can't be, the trade-off to achieve that can't be lack of rule of law or unfettered criminal activity. So there's got to be some middle ground. There's a lot of smart people working on this. I think we'll get to a solution over the long term.
Now, Ian, that was a great example you gave with the Lazarus Group in North Korea. What does Chainalysis do in that situation?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think a lot of people imagine what we do. I'll try and make it as simple as possible. So if you've ever looked at a block explorer like Etherscan, you can look at every transaction out there. A lot of them are actually now labeled, right? Like the popular, like Uniswap as a platform is labeled. When you look at Etherscan, you can see transactions going to and from Uniswap. But most things are not labeled. And even for some of the entities that are labeled, you don't have a complete catalog of all the addresses that kind of represent all the assets under management or all the components of a deposit infrastructure. We've done all that work. We've cataloged all that information. And so when you have an attack like Lazarus Group hacking the Axie Infinity Ronin Bridge, that happened earlier this year. They made off with like $600 million in Ethereum, about $25 million in USDC. Obviously, the Axie team wants to get that back for their users. They engage law enforcement, as you should when you have any sort of attack like that. But they also brought our team in because, interestingly, Lazarus can't just take that and go to North Korea and start buying food or whatever. They need to turn it into some other currency that they can actually spend. And so their efforts are to then take that cryptocurrency and launder it through a variety of methods and tactics. They're pretty good at it. And ultimately, they want to cash it out, turn it back into fiat currency somewhere. And so our role in that is to track all those funds, to trace through the tactics that they use to try and obscure their activity. And often a cash out point is an exchange, right? Because they have the fiat on-ramp, off-ramp. And so most of those exchanges are actually our customers as well. And so we're able to alert them, hey, there's a deposit incoming, and that deposit is likely related to this thing. You should probably flag that account. Don't allow a quick withdrawal on the other side. Do a full investigation. Like, you need to probably get law enforcement involved here. And so our technology basically facilitates that tracing of funds and alerting of concerned parties. And in the case of Ronin, so far we've helped recover about 10% of what was stolen, which is pretty exciting.
That 10% might not seem like a lot, but that is a lot of money. Now, I have a couple more questions. So, DeFi hacks have just been raging, especially in the month of October. I believe it was either October 11th or 14th, 4 hacks on DeFi. What needs to change? Because if I'm an institution or I'm a business, I don't feel comfortable parking a lot of my money on a DeFi platform because of these hacks. So what can we do, or what can these projects and companies do, and maybe how Chainalysis can help with making sure we're moving forward and these hacks become less and less instead of going the opposite way?
First thing I would say is, if we remember back to the early days of centralized exchanges, there was a lot of security issues, a lot of stolen funds. So there is a little bit of the fact that we're very early in DeFi. That's probably cliche to say at this point, but we're early. The technology is still being built out. The points of vulnerability, constantly being eliminated day after day. So the teams behind these protocols are working as hard as they can to build more secure, more safe to use facilities, and it's an ongoing process. The second thing I would say, though, is there's some very obvious points that are weaknesses in the current architecture. One of the most common ones that we see exploited is bridges. So as you're trying to move funds from one chain to another, say Ethereum to Solana, or from an L1 to an L2, funds get frozen there and then reissued on the other side. Some of the biggest hacks that we've seen manipulate the bridge in such a way that you're either draining without a corresponding deposit, you're withdrawing without depositing, or you're depositing one asset and then withdrawing something of a non-equivalent value on the other chain. That's what happened with the Ronin bridge we just talked about. It was a bridge attack. So I think right now a lot of people are very focused on the integrity of the code. You see everybody talking about, I have my code audited. Well, that's necessary, but it's not sufficient. I think there's a lot of development to be done around active monitoring. I think there's a lot of work to be done around like looking at bridge architectures generally, right? You think about a network like Ethereum, we have hundreds of operators running thousands, tens of thousands of nodes. A lot of these bridges are 4 or 5 servers, or 9 servers, right? Like it's a relatively small attack surface area that needs to be compromised, and so we've seen that model or vector of attack as well. So there's not one single solution here. Unfortunately, I can't give you like an easy button, but it's something that I'm confident is going to get improved over time. Because it's such a core area of where I think the future of finance is going.
Amen to that. It's just, when are we going to start seeing more security, maybe be put at the forefront? You seem to think, Ian, that they're on the right path. Yeah. So we'll see. What are your, and so to finish this up, I know you're a busy man. What's your overall thought about where we are in crypto? We're obviously in a bear market. You have a recession around the corner. Some people say we're already in a recession. Some people say we're not. What's your overall thought on where the market is going? And I'll kind of just leave it general.
I'm the last person you want to take investment advice from, so nobody should construe it that way. I'm bad at picking stocks. I'm bad at predicting the price of cryptocurrency. So, however, what I will say is, as someone who's building a software company in crypto ecosystem, I couldn't be more excited. I have a podcast called Public Key, just a little plug, we'll put it out there. I've had a ton of really cool early stage startup founders on the podcast recently doing amazing stuff. We just published one today, a company called Demo, who is building a telematics platform, bootstrapping the community and the ecosystem via crypto. So think Helium for in-car telematics. I think liquid staking. I talked to a company the other day called Alluvial Finance. These folks are building institutional grade, which is relevant for this audience at Money 2020, liquid staking platform, trusted counterparties, KYC AML built in. So when I look around, like price of Bitcoin and Ethereum's down. It's been down before. It's going to go back up. When and exactly to what level, who knows? What I'm enthusiastic about, though, is the people who are building new companies, filling some of the gaps that we talked about from a security standpoint, and I think we're going to come out of this cycle even stronger than before.
Amen to that. And, we talk about this on our show all the time. When in doubt, just look at what companies are doing, how they're deploying capital and resources. And we saw a company, what was it? Fidelity just hire 100 new people only for crypto. And so if your portfolios are down and you're sad, don't worry, because a lot is happening behind the scenes. We will drop a link to the Public Key podcast. Make sure you guys go subscribe. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to chatting with you again in the future. Thank you so much.